our one Manhattan-dwelling employee, the humblest of scribes, her humbleness herself, Emma Jo Morris. Hello, Emma Jo.
Hi, you've offended me now. I'm not in Manhattan. Oh. Come on.
Where are you?
I'm in Brooklyn. It's different.
Oh, well, that doesn't count. I mean, it counts, but I thought you were in Manhattan.
No, I was.
You're not like those city folk.
Thank God I got out of there during the pandemic. That was the straw. I was
sure, but got out of there. Got out of there.
You got out of there and just crossed the bridge.
Yeah, I mean, you're like a couple subway stops. You're not in Tennessee. Like I got out of there. We have so much to talk about, Emma Jo. I got like 10 things here, but we have to finish. We have to put a bow in this conversation for now. And just the whole thing is the difference between city folk and country folk. And it's a tale as old as time. And we shared an Aesop's fable from 2,500 years ago with the city mouse and the country mouse. Why do you think city folk are different? How? And do you think the city makes people different, or different people flock to the city, I suppose?
Interesting. It's like I got like a very brief, like just as I was coming on, like as the music was playing, the producers popped on and they were like, Mike, can I ask you about city people versus country people? And I was like, what does that mean? I'm like, okay, now I have to get into this like, ritual humiliation that usually happens on the Breitbart shows, or I have to be like, yeah, the city, it's the worst.
People like you.
Full of crime and illegal. But yeah, it's a really interesting question. And the truth is, like, I love, as much as the next conservative, dragging the metropolitan elitism that you find in the city. But the truth is, obviously, I have chosen to live here. Even though I have escaped to Brooklyn, it's still quite metropolitan. It's definitely considered a city out here. And I do love it. It's just different, and since I've worked at Breitbart, actually, so I don't know if the callers, I don't know if the listeners know, I actually come from Montreal, which is the most, not the biggest, but definitely I think the most metropolitan city in Canada. And I moved straight to New York from Montreal. So I never actually lived like out there, but since I've moved to Breitbart from the New York Post, I've had so many opportunities to go out into the country and like actually like get out of, the Acela corridor and really meet people and really spend time there and really take, time to immerse myself in the culture. And I absolutely love the people in the country. I love the people in the country. I definitely do love them more than people in the city, although I see the benefits of lifestyles of both. And the reason why I think that people are different in the city versus the country isn't that they're like less good people or that less good people come to the cities, but it's like the pace of it makes you stressed and on edge. That's what I think. And, because I even find myself changing a little bit when I've had these opportunities to get, into calmer areas of the country. And I think that obviously I think that people who are the way they are because they're in the city are those types of people anyway. There's certain types of people that thrive in fast-paced environments and high-pressure environments. And I find myself to be one of those people. Like, I just like getting pushed, and that's kind of what life is in the city. But when you get out to the country, you just totally unwind, and it makes you, I think, more able to stop and be friendly and, chat with the people around you, standing in line at the coffee shop or walking down the street. I think it makes you kind of just slow down, appreciate nature around you, appreciate the air around you. And those are the kinds of things that you're kind of deprived of in the city, and it kind of changes your personality. So I think that is kind of like the temperamental difference.
That's right. I'm trying to find this quote, and I can't find it. I forget who said it. But it's something like, people talk about the hustle and bustle of the city, but it's really just neurosis.
Yeah.
So I've read that, 100%. But it's like, well, I'm just like, everyone's just freaking out all the time.
Yeah,
that's the energy. It's something like the energy.
Montreal is a city, but it's definitely not as intense of a city as New York. And I find that after I moved to New York, and then I would go back to Montreal, I would be, standing in line for a coffee and becoming irate at the barista because it wasn't going fast enough. And it's like, I'm there visiting my parents. I'm not even in a rush. but you become hardwired to think you're in a rush all the time, and then become incensed when people don't keep up with your time. And it's hold on, I'm being crazy right now. I don't even have anywhere to be. I can chill out for a second. The barista's on her time and on the pace of the city that I'm in.
That's great. Yeah, that's right. So here, it's Evelyn. I found this. Evelyn Wah. I don't know this guy. For in that city, there is neurosis in the air, which the inhabitants mistake for energy.
Yeah.
I love the hustle and bustle.
Well, the thing is, too, it's once you're in these environments, you get addicted to the environment. And then, like I said, you feel weird being outside of the craziness and the pressure. You don't know how to adapt.
And what's weird, though, is and all that's fine from a sociological perspective, but then what turns that into Democrats? How can we have people call in from Superior, Nebraska and say, oh, those people in Omaha, or the guy who just called in from Iowa who's oh, yeah, Iowa City, they don't even know that they live in Iowa. How can people in Nebraska? So real quick, we're not going to get to anything we're supposed to get to today, but that's okay. We talked to the state senator from Nebraska about changing the electoral college alignment there, right? And I was you guys have a super majority. What gives? He's oh, well, 5 of the Republicans are in Omaha. I'm yeah? What's your point? He's oh, well, they vote with the Democrat. Yeah. That's okay. Yeah. What are you talking? What? And people are calling it oh, yeah, that's Portland. How can that be?
Well, I think that there's a few reasons for that. First of all, in cities, everybody lives on top of each other. So it creates this kind of need for communalism, because if you don't have a communal mentality, it kind of falls apart. It's not you have your own land and you take care of your own land and everybody takes care of their own stuff, and then all of a sudden it all works. It's you kind of have a tragedy of the commons in the city, because there is no your own stuff. It's I live in a building with 8 units, which is actually a very private building for us. And you need it to have some sort of communal mentality. Otherwise, it just gets left and nobody deals with anything. I think that's the first kind of philosophical thing. But then also, liberals are neurotic. They're control freaks and they're neurotic. And I see how the lifestyle here and kind of the person that people tend to turn into living here lends itself to becoming more left-leaning. It's it's hard to explain, but it makes total sense to me. I find people on the left much more high-strung than people on the right, much more concerned with what everybody else around them is doing, much more concerned with control over their lives when they feel like they have no control over their lives, and control over the lives around them, because that gives them the sensation of control. I totally see it. It's hard to I wasn't expecting this question, so I didn't get a chance to really think about it and maybe even read about it, but it makes sense when you think about the mindset of living in the city, and how it makes you kind of feel I don't have this, thank God, but people who tend to live in cities also tend to have some sort of central planning, holier than thou mentality. They think that they live the hardest life in America and that they've figured it all out. And also, it just makes them high-strung. It makes them control freaks.